All right. Do we have sound? Check, check. I don't know. All right. Check. Sounds awful low. You guys hear everything? I don't know why. Good sound? Okay, good. I'm actually drinking me some tea. Victory Gin. Okay, there it is. There's the sound. It's kind of gone there for a second. What's up, people? How you doing? Victory Gin checking in from Twitter. That's how you do it. Thanks for hanging out with me every day on these interwebs. Welcome back to Blackburn News, where everything is connected and all the viewers are smarter than the average bear. Drinking ginger tea. At this point in the day, I've got to switch because I drink like incredibly strong coffee, and if I drink it past, 4 has got to be the cutoff. But if I drink it past 4, I'm just like laying awake in bed all night, thinking things. It's not good. Anyways, welcome everyone. Good to see you. Jazz says it's Cabernet time. All right, whatever floats your boat. Man, Jazz Farm, that is pretty good. I like that. Everyone is born with a bank account that we allow the world to draw from, the amount of shit we will put up with. Mine is now empty, and if they want to borrow, I want credit card rates. Sounds good. I like that. Let's put it on the screen. Anyways, we're all here. Good to see you. Thanks for chilling with me. Oh, it's not that kind of tea. It's ginger. It's just ginger. with honey. So there's no caffeine. It's just boiled ginger and water. Straight up ginger tea. No tea leaves, no caffeine, nothing like that. Though I have to say, it does. For some reason, I feel like the the ginger tea kind of activates my caffeine. Right, if I've been drinking coffee all day and then I switch to ginger tea, it kind of like there's absolutely no caffeine in this whatsoever, but it kind of like boosts the caffeine that's already there. Anyways, let's get into it because I'm gonna have to end right on time today, or maybe a couple minutes early. I am got a lot going on today. That's all. Okay. This is sea surface temperature anomalies, or not necessarily surface temperature, record water temperature anomalies. I don't know how deep this is. 2005, it looked like this. 2005, the year of Hurricane Katrina. And this is 2024. My God, look at that. Will you look at that? Will you look at the difference there? Oh, well, they're faking those temperatures. Okay. The water temperatures are fake. That's why there's, deadly storms and rain bombs every single day all over the world. That's because the water temperatures are fake. Okay. Okay. Oh, you can't see that. I'm like, you guys aren't seeing this. I'm like, look at that. And you're like, at what? Look at that. All right, I got you, Gene. I was just slightly behind myself. But that is a serious. Look at that. Anyways, the general outlook is mild to heavy hurricanes. And we'll look more at all the incredible extreme weather events happening every single day. It seems to be, a main part of what I bring you every day. Following a decade of research showing that climate change will increase clear air turbulence in the future, we now have evidence suggesting that the increase has already begun. Well, yeah, because it has. Because it is. It is begun. Flight turbulence has increased as climate change has warmed the planet. Researchers say scientists at Reading University in the UK studied clear air turbulence, which is harder for pilots to avoid. They found that severe turbulence had increased 55% between 1979 and 2020 on a typically busy North Atlantic route. 55%. They put the increase down to changes in wind speed at high altitudes due to warmer air from carbon emissions, following a decade of research showing that climate change will increase clear air turbulence. In the future, we now have evidence suggesting that the increase has already begun. And we just saw that crazy um, Boeing thing that happened yesterday. Who could it have been plane malfunction? We don't know. Could it be turbulence? Maybe. Following a decade of research showing that climate change will increase clear air turbulence in the future, we now have evidence suggesting that the increase has already begun, said Professor Paul Williams, an atmospheric scientist at the University of Reading, who co-authored the study. We should be investing in improved turbulence forecasting and detection systems because, golly, we got to keep going. We got to keep plowing these big, heavy metal hunks of aircraft through the air. We've just got to keep going. So let's increase our turbulence detection, okay? For the people that maybe think that this might pose an existential threat, maybe just stay out of the air. I don't know. Flight routes in the USA and North Atlantic saw the largest increases. Europe, the Middle East, and South Atlantic also saw significant increases in turbulence. Professor Williams said the increased turbulence was due to greater wind shear or differences in wind speed in the jet stream, a strong wind system blowing from the west to east. While satellites can't see the turbulence, they can see the structure and the shape of the jet stream, allowing it to be analyzed. Radar can pick up turbulence from storms, but clear air turbulence is almost invisible and hard to detect. Turbulent flights are not only uncomfortable, but can also cause injuries for those on the flight. Severe turbulence is very rare, but clear air turbulence can come out of the blue when passengers are not belted in. Nobody should stop flying because they're afraid of turbulence. Or if you want to. But it is sensible to keep your seatbelt fastened all the time, unless you're moving around, which is what the pilots do, said Professor Williams. This is almost a guarantee you will be safe even in the worst turbulence. Listen to this. There are also financial consequences. The aviation industry loses between $150 million and $500 million dollars in the U.S. alone annually due to the effects of turbulence. Wow. $650 million due to the effects of turbulence, including wind, wear, and tear on aircraft, said the researchers. It also has an environmental cost as pilots burn up fuel avoiding it. Huh. And again, I say, huh. Yeah, Wendy, I saw that. We actually talked about that yesterday. If you're talking about the Boeing, the Singapore Airlines aircraft, I think that's what you're talking about. I might be wrong. You were saying sea surface temperature over the Bay of Bengal was about 31.5 degrees Celsius. Yeah, that's the one you're talking about, right? Yeah. All right. Well, let us entertains me. Let us makes me smile. Let's keep going. Shall we? This is in France, northern France, Tuesday evening. Good Lord. This is in Spain. Florida. Anybody see this one? I think this is from a while ago, but this is really frightening. Look at this. Watch this. There's a mini beach tornado earlier this year, Clearwater, Florida. What the hell? People. I mean, come on. We're in the age where just weird, wacky weather things are just going to be happening like this. This is it. This is the new era. It's the dawning of a new era. Where regular stuff, regular stuff might be able to happen, but also regular stuff might not happen because of this, because of just the absolutely unexpected happening all the time. Remember when we talked about the tumbleweed thing in Utah? I think it's still going on. That's crazy though. Look at that. I mean, that's strong enough to pick like everything up. I don't know if it actually picks people up. But people are really trying to get out of the way of that. And this is in Utah. Tumbleweeds cause traffic troubles in Utah. A seemingly endless stream bounces across the road. And man, this is the aftermath of that tornado. We talked about the tornado yesterday in Iowa. It took out some wind turbines. I'm pretty sure we talked about it, didn't we? Anyways, this is the city of Greenfield. I mean, this is some serious devastation here. And there's some before and after pics going around. Really, Jazz Farm? Colorado Springs gets tumbleweeds? Houses get buried by tumbleweeds? Jeez. Wendy DeLeese, tumbleweeds are examples of vertical convection? Yeah. Look at that. That is insane. Give me a second here, guys. Jazz Farm says, I saw that storm cell go over us on its way to beat the heck out of the Midwest. Yeah. Let's look at this. And all of this has a cost. As I'm sure you all know. We'll look at this from Doomer Girl News. Jay Gibbon says, before 1920, there were no tumbleweeds in the U.S. Is that true? Is that true? Or are you just saying that? I mean, sure. Anyways, natural disasters hit 1 in 5 U.S. adults' finances in 2023. I bet you. Yeah, sure, I bet you. Almost 20% of adults in the United States. That is a huge number. 20% of adults. They came over from Russia? Really? Okay. Okay. You learn something every day. 20% of, what is it? The population of the U.S. is like 330 million. How much of that population is adults? I'm not sure, but probably more than half. I'm guessing. Much more than half, probably. Anyways, what I like 20% of whatever that number is. Let's see. Let's find out. Let's do a little fact up and then. Adults in China, but go. Oh, that is not helpful at all. Child stat. No. Percentage of selected age groups as a percentage of the total U.S. population. Oh, my God. I don't need all this right now. I just don't. Let's see if this is helpful. Can I just get the whole United States? Children, 23%. No? Yes. Children, 23%, 0 to 18. Adults, from 19 up. That's the rest of them. So 80% of the total population, let's say 75%. 20% of what's, roughly 75% of 330 million. I was going to say my first thought was around 200 million, and that's not quite it. Let's say 250. %, of that have been affected financially by disasters. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. So 50 million people, roughly, super rough. 40 to 50 million people have been impacted financially. That is crazy. 20% of the United States were of adults in the United States were financially impacted by natural disasters last year, the Federal Reserve said Tuesday, making a nearly 50% rise from 2022. 50% rise. What was the percentage of air turbulence incidents over the last few years? 55%. I've just thought that was interesting. The Fed's annual, what's the percentage of CO2 rise over the last century or more? 50%. Fed's annual report into economic well-being of U.S. households found that 19% of adults reported being financially affected by natural disasters or severe weather events like flooding and wildfires over the last 12 months. So I saw somebody chiding Gavin Newsom about saying, now trust me, I don't give what Gavin Newsom says a lot of weight, and surely the man is up to no good in general, and he's certified liar, but he was saying that the state budget was being impacted by weather events and climate change, and that I was listening to a channel and they were like poo-pooing that point, and I was like, actually, it's not a bad point. It's really not a bad point at all. If 20% of your population has been impacted financially by weather events, well, yeah, wouldn't that impact their ability to pay their taxes or spend any money or do anything? Also the repairs and the sending out road crews and emergency crews, and like that costs money, right? Don't fires impact a state's economy financially? Yeah, of course it does. That's why they ask for federal relief from that. Anyways, they were saying it was a joke, but I mean, I was kind of like, yeah, I could see that. It's not that weird of an idea. This is up sharply from 13% in 2022, with some of the biggest changes seen in the west of the country, where the percentage of people noting a financial impact from natural disasters almost doubled. In the U.S. South, which includes hurricane-prone states such as Florida, almost a quarter of all respondents said they were financially hit by natural disasters, while just 13% did so in the Northeast. In its report, the Fed noted that some of those people at highest risk from natural disasters were also less likely to have homeowners insurance. Homeowners with lower income, those living in the South, and homeowners who had already been financially affected by a natural disaster were all less likely to have homeowners insurance, a report found. The number of American adults who reported doing at least okay financially remained relatively unchanged at 72% in 2023. Really? The figure masked one important change. Parents living with children under the age of 18 saw a 5 percentage point decline from a year earlier, with just 64% saying they were doing at least okay financially. That's getting down there. The report also highlighted child care as a substantial share of the family budget, for parents using paid child care costing typically 50 to 70% of what the parents spend each month on housing. Golly. Things are out of control, y'all. Anyways, well, it's all very interesting. Oh, I'm sorry you guys can't. I'm doing a bad, guys. This was the article. Sorry if that's annoying. What's up, Rockfinners? Mostly Denver. Osama. Denver, what's up? Denver says Twitter won't even load unless I'm logged in now. Oh, I saw that. About the no Gaza aid delivered through U.S.-built pier has been distributed, Pentagon says, but weapons have been delivered. Oh, yes, they have. Weapons have been delivered. Man. Let's see. Let's keep going. Showed you the tornadoes, the tumbleweeds, the tornadoes. Ah, jeez. Got some interesting video to play for you from the author of Economic Hitman. The book, The Economic Hitman. Have you guys read that book? I'm sure you have. It's been out for a while. Is it John Perkins? Is that his first name? I know his last name is Perkins. Yep. Let's look at this. What are we looking at? Man, it smells like somebody's burning something. It's making me nervous. It's making me nervous, man. It's cool. A lot of people around here have like fire pits and stuff, but in the middle of the day, when it's kind of warm out, it just makes me nervous. Oh my God. I'm not gonna look at the No Seattle Times. Hold on. I'm not gonna subscribe to No Seattle Times. I'm just gonna read this. None of the food and supplies that has entered the Gaza Strip through the U.S.-built temporary pier in its first 5 days of operation has been distributed to Palestinians by aid organizations. There's people busy blocking the roads and blowing up the aid and blowing up the people trying to get the aid. That's all. Anyways, it hasn't been distributed. Ryder said that 569 metric tons of aid had made it onto Gaza's shore, but that those supplies had yet to be parceled out by humanitarian organizations. On Saturday, hungry crowds looted several World Food Program trucks transporting aid that had been delivered through the pier, prompting the agency to suspend deliveries of aid arriving at the pier on Sunday and Monday. Ryder also said that after discussions with Israel and the United Nations, alternative routes for the safe movement of staff and cargo had been established. The aid is now being taken to warehouses for further distribution, he said. We do anticipate that assistance will be distributed in the coming days, of course, conditions permitting. Well, I saw somewhere that they had delivered weapons through that pier. Anybody else see that? Oh, right on. And asking ye shall receive. Somebody sent me the before and after pictures of Greenfield, Iowa. Let's look at those, shall we? No. And no. Man. It was a nice chill street with trees and stuff. And now it is just absolutely wiped out. Man. That's horrible. What's this one? Just checking out the links that Denver is dropping on Rockfin here. What's this about? What's this about? Indicted member of Congress steers campaign donor funds to legal fees amid bribery allegations. Henry Cuellar of Texas. Yeah, that guy is dirty as the day is long. Which is a weird saying because the day is not very long. Okay, let's watch this from John Perkins. I think it's John Perkins. Please let me know if I'm getting it wrong. John Perkins, yes it is. All right. It's kind of long, guys. I guess I'll do this first before I play these videos. He gives a little history lesson here. These are very interesting. I think it sounds like he's talking to an audience. What am I saying here? Oh, this is the time. If you enjoy this show, if you like this content, coming to you for free every single day, Monday through Friday. If you like you know, hanging out here and getting in the chats and right. If you appreciate this place to congregate, please consider making a financial donation to the show, and I could surely use it, of course. And there's lots of ways to do it. There's a bunch of links in the description box. You know, the usuals: PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, so all that kind of stuff. And to all the people that donate on the regular and have donated in the past, I appreciate you. You know who you are. I feel like I'm starting to get bit up out here. Yeah, I saw that Jazz Farm. They just banned Biden from the Ohio ballot. What? He does. He does look like GW. Yeah, no, I saw that in passing, the Ohio thing. I think from Tim Pool. A lot of people are pondering the idea that they're gonna ditch Biden soon, and it wouldn't take much. You know what I'm saying? It wouldn't take much. It wouldn't take much to get rid. You know, Biden. All they have to do is say like Biden had a stroke. Biden is incapacitated. You know, something. Who knows? And that's probably that's if I'm if I'm a betting person, that's probably the route. You know, they keep saying they're going to ditch him for Newsom or somebody else. You know, and maybe I don't know. Maybe that's so. It sounds a little extreme, honestly. But the best the best they could do probably is, it wouldn't be very hard. It's just usher him away from the White House, tell everybody he had a medical emergency, and after a couple of days or a week, they announce like, well, he's not, he's lost brain function, whatever, and that's a wrap. We're gonna have to take another route. I don't know that it's going to make a difference in anything happening in any way, shape or form. Right? Things will go on as they are planned. Right? Because I think it's more about the plan than it is the person. But if Biden is still, he's barely there. But if he's somewhat lurch worthy, if he can lurch to the dang elections and they'll lurch him right along. They'll lurch him into trying to get to presidency again. But it's touch and go. Extra Bullet says, I think any Democrat is barred from the presidential ballot since they didn't hold a primary. I don't know about that one. I didn't know if that was a rule, but sure. Jazz Farm says it's on a technicality about the number of days of the convention prior to the actual election. Okay. Okay. I don't know. It's like rules schmools, If the rules don't go in your favor, so what? If the rules go in your favor, so what? I saw that too. Snap election in UK in less than 2 weeks. Now, I'm actually a fan of that. I kind of like the idea that they could just call an election. this every 4 years scenario is. I mean, I guess it makes people feel nice and comfortable, but we all know what the outcome is going to be, whatever they decide it's going to be. Something, I don't know if they're as adept at poll rigging in the UK as we are. I mean, Brexit passed. Look at that. I mean, I feel like I believe that the people might actually have a voice there. Going South says, but election is called by the ruling party for when their side and numbers look best. Yeah, I'm sure there's finagling in it. I saw that too, Gigabane, that Klaus Schwab had stepped down. Not saying that they're going to stop doing what they're doing, but it's pretty significant. He's feeling the heat. Nobody likes that guy, and they're starting to get it. They're starting to get that he is a PR problem. He's a PR problem. They don't want Klaus Schwab out in front of anything anymore. Same with Fauci, right? Fauci has disappeared. If you noticed, they don't want Fauci around anymore. He is a problem. He's a liability. Gigabane says, I think the Tories actually want to lose, so Labor is in power when it all goes. Yeah. Well, why not? Okay, let's listen to this because it's late and I'm going to have to go soon. So,
I think we're...
Let's see if I can get this a little bigger.
I think we're at war. Why we're doing what we're doing in the Middle East today, in Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, in Kuwait, and all over. Why this is happening, and by understanding that, how we must end it. From my perspective, what we've been doing since the end of World War II is building an empire. And today we have managed to build the world's first truly global empire. It's the first in the history of the world. And it's also the first empire that's really been built without the military for the most part. It's been built through economics, through economic hitmen like me. The military has been there standing in the background, prepared to go in to serve us, to take care of things when we failed. But it's been essentially built through economics. And it's the first empire that hasn't been built primarily by the military. It's also the first empire without an emperor. Instead of an empire, what we have today, and what's been growing stronger and stronger since World War II, is what I call the corporatocracy. And this is a fairly small group of mostly men who run our biggest corporations. And through them, they run our government and practically every other government in the world, all the important ones in the world. They are the equivalent of the empire. And they are in control regardless of whether we have a Republican or a Democrat in the White House or controlling Congress. They are in control. Certain things may be different with a Republican and a Democrat. For example, the Supreme Court, people that are put on that. There's differences. But as far as building this empire is concerned, it continues under all those regimes. And this is what we must change. And so how do we economic hitmen work? We will identify a country, a third world country, that has resources that our corporations covet, like oil. And then we'll arrange a huge loan to that country from an organization like the World Bank. But this loan doesn't go to the country. Instead, it goes to U.S. corporations, Halliburton, Bechtel, Brown and Root, you know the names. Those are the ones that get the money. And they build big infrastructure projects in this country, power plants, ports, highways, industrial parks, things that benefit the very rich who are in collaboration with the corporatocracy, but they don't benefit the poor. The country's left holding a huge debt, so huge you can't possibly repay it. So at some time, we economic hitmen go back and say to the country, listen, you can't pay your debts, so give us a pound of flesh. sell oil to our oil companies real cheap, or vote with us on the next critical United Nations vote, or send troops in support of ours to someplace in the world like Iraq. And in that way, we built this empire. Sometimes we fail, not very often, but what happens then is what we call the jackals go in. The jackals overthrow governments, as we tried to do in 2002 with Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, or they assassinate the leaders of these governments, as they did with Jaime Roldos in Ecuador and Omar Torrijos in Panama. He died in a fiery airplane crash. I have no doubt it was a CIA orchestrated assassination done by jackals. On the few occasions when the jackals also fail, then, and only then, does the military go in. That's what happened in Iraq. To understand Iraq, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my perspective on Iraq in just a minute, but to really understand it, we first have to understand Saudi Arabia.
All right, there's another one to play. Real quick, want to thank Denver on Rockfin for the tip. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate you. He said, thank you for your time and daily contribution. Appreciate that, man.
In the early 70s, OPEC
this.
didn't like what we were doing in Israel. Same old story. And so they cut off our oil supplies. So some of you will remember these long lines at the gas stations. And we feared we were going to have another depression like the 1929 depression. And so the U.S. Treasury Department came to me and other economic hitmen and said, listen, you know, we can't allow OPEC to blackmail us anymore. You guys got to come up with a plan so this will never happen again. We knew that that plan had to involve Saudi Arabia because it had more oil than anybody else. And it also, the House of Saud, the royal family, was corrupt and corruptible. The long version is explained in the book, but the short version of what we did, the deal we finally struck with the House of Saud, was a deal whereby they would return almost all the money they made from selling oil to the United States, invested in U.S. government securities. The U.S. Treasury Department would use the interest from those securities, which over the years has amounted to trillions of dollars, to hire U.S. companies to westernize Saudi Arabia, build petrochemical complexes, desalinization plants, whole cities out of the desert, McDonald's and all the other things that go along with our Western culture. The House of Saud would also agree to keep the price of oil within limits acceptable to the oil companies, possibly not acceptable to you and me, but acceptable to the oil companies. And this is very, very important. They agreed that they would never, ever sell oil for anything other than U.S. dollars. This happened in the early 70s, right after we'd gone off the gold standard because we were bankrupt, because we could not pay off our debts to European countries in gold. Nixon took us off the gold standard. And then we were stuck with a situation as why will anybody in the world use dollars? So very shortly we came up with this plan, which in essence put the dollar on the oil standard. You cannot buy oil on the world market for anything other than dollars. And that's very important to the corporatocracy. Our part of the bargain was we agreed to keep the House of Saud in power, in control. It was an amazing deal, the deal of the century. It was history-making, incredibly powerful deal that we struck with Saudi Arabia. And it's held. It's had some what the CIA calls blowback, unintended consequences. There's been some blowback, but on the whole, the corporatocracy looked at this as an incredible success. I had done my job. We economic hitmen did a great job with that one. So we decided that Saddam Hussein ought to accept something very similar. Now, probably a lot of you know that Saddam has been our boy for a very, very long time. You may remember Abdul Karim Qasim, who was president of Iraq in the early 60s. Qasim came up with a unique concept. He said, Iraqi oil ought to go to benefit the Iraqi people. How novel is that? But we didn't like that very much. He began to tax the oil companies, particularly the British and some American companies, and threatened to nationalize our oil companies. And so we decided that Qasim had to go. The CIA sent in an assassination team. It was headed by a man who was still going through high school, an Iraqi citizen who was still going through high school. They riddled Qasim's car with bullets on the streets of Baghdad and missed him. The head of this assassination team was wounded and fled to Syria. His name was Saddam Hussein. He was a CIA agent in those days, an assassin for us. He failed. And so the CIA went directly, and this is all history, I'm not creating this. CIA went in and had Qasim publicly executed on Iraqi television. They put Saddam's cousin in charge. He became president of Iraq, and Saddam became vice president in charge of security. Eventually, as you know, he became president. He was our boy. He was our man. And in the 1980s, we decided that Saddam Hussein ought to accept something similar to Saudi Arabia. It was such a successful deal, because after all, what we want to do is control the Middle East and control the oil in the Middle East. And incidentally, I'm going to get back to Iraq in just a moment, but for those of you who think that Israel is about creating a homeland for the Jewish people, you're as deceived as most of them are. It's partly about that, perhaps, but what it's really about is creating a surrogate fortress in the middle of the Middle East. The Israelis are being used as pawns. They're being used like old armies used to use sheep that ran before the armies. They're our surrogates. And their leadership knows that. Most Israelis probably don't. They think they're creating a homeland. But it's a very, very sad situation of what's going on there. And of course, the Lebanese and the Palestinians are caught in the middle of this. And Iraq is part of that too. We have to remember that Middle Eastern oil is the oil that's used by a great deal of Europe, and China, and Japan. If we control Middle Eastern oil, we control our biggest potential competitors, Japan, China, Europe. So it's very important that we do that. So in the 80s, we decided that Saddam ought to accept the same sort of deal that the Saudis had accepted. The economic hitmen went in and did their job on him, but he wouldn't buy. He'd been our man, but he wouldn't buy. If he had, he'd still be president of Iraq, and we'd be selling him all the tanks and fighter jets and all the chemical plants he wants. But he wouldn't buy. So we sent in the jackals. They couldn't take him out. His security was very good, and he had many doubles, many lookalikes. Now, in the case of both Roldos and Torrijos, the way we assassinate presidents like that, well, let me ask you a question. If you're the president of a country and you're surrounded by men with AK-47s and other heavy armaments, your bodyguards, and somebody wants to assassinate you, who's the most likely candidate to be your assassin? Your bodyguards, particularly if they happen to be trained at the School of the Americas. And Roldos' and Torrijos' bodyguards were trained at the School of the Americas. Almost all of them were. Now, we all know that men like that, trained in those schools, are usually pretty loyal to their trainers, their mentors. They were also very underpaid. And so, for example, in the case of Torrijos, what we did was go up to one of his bodyguards, sent his teacher from the School of the Americas to a couple of his bodyguards, who were making about $10,000 a year. And the mentors went in, the teachers went in and said, look, you know, you'd be doing this country a great service if you get rid of this man, this Torrijos. You got to get him out of here. And incidentally, here's $100,000. You're only making $10,000 a year, so this is a pretty good deal. We could do that. In the case of Iraq, Saddam had been our man. He had been our assassin. He knew our ways. He knew how to protect himself. He had damn good security and all these look-alike doubles. Now, what's the stupidest thing you can do if you're bodyguard to a president? Shoot his double. And if you never know who you're guarding and somebody offers you a high price to shoot somebody and you don't even know who you're guarding, you're probably not going to do it, because, by God, if you shot Saddam's double, you and your family and everybody else you ever ran into on the streets, life wouldn't be worth much, would it? So we couldn't take him out. So in '91, we sent in the military, our military, and some of you people were there. We could have taken Saddam out at that time, and I think you who were there probably know that better than anybody else. But we didn't want to. Saddam was the type of man the corporatocracy likes. The strong man, could keep his people under control. He could keep the Iranians under control on their borders pretty well. He could keep the Kurds under control. We thought that when we took out his military, he would be sufficiently chastised that now he would buy our deal. So the economic hitmen went back to work on him in the 90s. Couldn't bring him around again, though. Again.
You know what I remember distinctly? This stuck with me. I was a very young man when that happened, when the first Iraq war happened. And I remember distinctly, George Bush or whoever, spokesperson for the White House at the time, saying, we're going to go in there and we're going to get him. We're going to get Saddam. We got to go get Saddam, right? We're going to get him, building up to this. And as soon as they had got in and like neutralized their forces, this is the first one, right? When they didn't take him out, they left him in power, which was wild, right? They didn't take him out. And I remember George Bush Sr. on TV saying, well, we can't take him out. That's against international law, something. And I was like, you lying ass son of a bitch. You son of a bitch. Like, you guys are pulling a double switch, right? You guys are screwing around. And I realized it at the time. I wasn't very politically, I wasn't super politically aware or, all that invested. But like when I saw that happen, I distinctly remember them saying, we're going to go in and we're going to get Saddam Hussein. And then they went in there, beat the military, and they were like, well, we can't take him out because, blah, 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 international law. I was like, so when the law works for you, so what, right? When the law works against you, so what? When the law works for you, so what? You just make up your own, that's what we do. We just make up whatever rules we want to abide by or not abide by in the moment, and we use them to our advantage. Anyways.
And if they had, he'd still be there. The assassins couldn't take him out again. So once again, the military went in, and they're still there. Of course, if we'd struck that deal with him, we would be building, our Bechtels and Halliburtons would be building huge cities there and petrochemical complexes, just like they've done in Saudi Arabia. And of course, that's what they're doing there now, too, in a different way. But that's what this is all about. That's what these wars are about. From my perspective, that's what Iraq is about. Iraq is a classic case of failure on the part of economic hitmen and jackals. And when we fail, you guys go in to do the job. We know we live in a very small world. We also know that today we have all the resources that we need to create a better world. 24,000 people die every single day from poor food, starvation, or hunger-related diseases. 24,000 people died on 9/11 from hunger. 24,000 people died today from hunger. But it doesn't have to happen. We have all the resources we need to change that. And that is the cause of so many of these problems, the fact that we've created a world where there's so much desperation, where there's so much poverty and anger and so much fear around the world. But we can change that.
All right, guys. I just want to play that for you. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. Thanks, as always, for the conversation. Y'all are awesome. I'll see you tomorrow at the regular time of 4 p.m. Pacific Daylight. And enjoy the rest of your day. Until next time, peace.